Well, good morning, good afternoon, and welcome to the breakout sessions for Octane 21. I'm John Pritchard, and I lead developer relations here at Okta. Today, I'm very excited to introduce the developer experience session, which, if you are an application developer or DevOps or perhaps DevSecOps, I think you're really going to enjoy. This is actually one of two talks in the digital experience track this year that is focused on developers. And I think this goes to show how important a role both identity and the developer capabilities are becoming to customer experience applications. In this session, you're going to get a first look at our new developer experience and see examples of identity automation. And as you will hear today, identity is involved in just about everything that you do, from how your customers access your apps to how your services communicate over APIs to even how your infrastructure resources are managed. Now, hearing all of that, you may think that only applies to software companies. But what if I told you every company, regardless of industry, is becoming a software company? There is an incredible, powerful phenomena happening in industry right now. And to explain it, I need to invite you to join me on a bit of anthropology. So, right now, technology is powering just about everything about business, from how we run to the products and services we sell to the way we interact with our customers. You may be surprised to learn that of the 20 million software engineers worldwide, more than half work outside of the technology sector. Think about that for just a moment. More than half of all software engineers in the world work for a company that doesn't make software. Software has become so pervasive in everything we do that if you work for a manufacturing company or in retail or you produce content or even a small business, software is powering how you compete. Every company is becoming a software company. And in that transition, developers are quickly becoming what we call the enterprise kingmakers. And what I mean by that is that developers now have a huge influence on how technology decisions are made. That's basically because there are so few of them. They are constrained resources. There's vastly more demand of software engineering talent than there is supply. And this enormous digital growth that we're going through is just making it worse. And this isn't just a North American problem, it's actually worldwide. At the end of 2020, there were 1.5 million unfilled developer roles, and there's roughly only a potential pool to meet about 5% of that demand. If you consider developers with security training, that ratio is even worse. And this really isn't just getting any better. Now, you may be thinking that this is all interesting, but I don't see why that's important to me. It's important because it's fundamentally changing how software is being developed today. Think about today's developer experience. How many choices does your team have to make when creating an application? How's your backend logic going to be developed? What language are you going to choose and why? What front-end frameworks do you choose? And why are there so many choices? What about mobile and web considerations? Which cloud services will you use? Will you be multi-cloud? Should you use multi-cloud? Which one do you start with first? How many SaaS applications do you need to integrate with? And that's just for your app. It assumes that all your production tooling like logging, telemetry, and failover are all in place. The one thing that developers have always lacked is time, and this isn't helping. Collectively, these dynamics are driving a new style of development that is optimized for both speed and agility. This is aptly named cloud native development. In this cloud native style that prescribes a method for building applications, and it provides an ecosystem of technology providers that all integrate. So for backend logic, it's containerized microservices, and they're used to define small aspects of business capability that are expressed generally as APIs. Workflows become service-to-service communications, and these are APIs talking to other APIs, generally using an API gateway. Front ends get simplified as Jamstack implementations or single page apps or native experiences. Things like compute, monitoring, telemetry, recoverability, these all are now provided through a rich open standards ecosystem. The entire deployment and integration pipeline is automated, and all the parts of the environment are expressed as code. Now, this is an incredibly powerful change happening in how software is built. It uses a set of pre-described patterns and standards to drive automation and speed of the ecosystem of technologies that are all integratable. Now, you may look at this and say, this doesn't reflect the environment that I have now, but I will argue over time it will. Because the new developer experience is trying to solve exactly the problem we've been talking about, is time and speed and automation. And with this new developer experience, we are seeing personas and technologies merge. The very role we refer to today as DevOps grew out of this as code automation where infrastructure became immutable and changes to production meant redeploying the entire environment. DevOps engineers use the same CI CD automation as their app dev counterparts and express their environments programmatically. Building the app now became the same as building the environment. They were synonymous. Today, you might find DevSecOps roles in some organizations. Here, application and infrastructure security become part of this as code automation. And more importantly, they become part of the same dev team. Cloud native development brings these personas and technologies together, with each role contributing to some aspect of the larger application stack. And with that, we are seeing the role of identity converging. Customer identity is used to personalize the digital experience from customer sign-up to progressive profiling to multi-factor authentication. This is how you secure your apps. Service identity is used to manage machine-to-machine workflows. These are composable microservices used across the enterprise. This is how you secure your APIs. And workforce identity is used to control authentication and authorization of your production resources, containers, databases, and clusters. This is how you control and secure your infrastructure. Like everything else, identity becomes as code automation in cloud native architectures. And this is how we think about the future. The need for speed and agility is driving the emergence of these cloud native architecture design patterns and fundamentally changing how software is developed. To us, a world-class developer experience is one that gives developers what they need to easily secure their apps, to secure their APIs, and to secure their infrastructure. It integrates into the as-code automation pipelines and works within this cloud-native ecosystem. This is the new developer experience. So let's take a look and see this in action. Allow me to introduce Albert Chen, who's going to show you the developer first mile experience. Over to you, Albert.
Hi, I'm Albert Chen, product manager at Okta. Now that you've heard about our developer experience vision and what we're working very hard to bring to market in the next few months, I want to spend some time showing you what we've been working on to make Auth available to all developers, along with how we've been improving our developer onboarding experience. First, we'll do some demos of our new developer capabilities and offerings, and then we'll go over some exciting pricing and feature updates to our self-service developer edition plans. I'm really excited to show you our new developer homepage. It's been completely redesigned from the ground up, backed by user research in talking to devs about how they discover and learn about their use cases and goals. We've prioritized the information architecture to promote our docs and SDKs and ensure that devs of all skill levels and familiarity with identity are served equally well. We publish our dev docs in three different varieties. We offer API references, concepts, and guides. References are exactly what they sound like. They are our API endpoints, methods, parameters, and release notes. You can download our Postman collections to experience requests and responses. Concepts are informative docs, which help educate you on protocols like OAuth or SAML, OpenID Connect, or SCIM. And then guides are goal oriented. They are step by step, which walk you through from start to finish in accomplishing any given coding task. Self-service ability to build on top of Okta is really important to us. Accordingly, we recently published over 30 new developer concepts and guides. And we've gotten really great feedback from devs about our step-by-step guides on, for example, how to brand and customize the Okta sign-in widget, or how to customize emails and SMS, how to deploy your apps, how to migrate users into Okta, and helpful checklists like your post-deployment checklists. Another point I'd like to make is that just like our SDKs, Okta's developer portal is actually completely open source. If you ever see a defect or you just like to surface an issue for discussion, you can click on the button at the bottom of each DevDoc page, which says Edit this page in GitHub. We love when our community comments or suggests changes, and some of our most recent improvements have been directly driven by external developers commenting on our docs. Earlier this year, we launched social login for our own developer org signup page. To get your own free developer edition org, you can easily sign up via GitHub or Google, or just choose email to sign up. We often hear from our customers that social login is a game changer in terms of encouraging logins and product adoption. We're also happy to report that this same trend is true for Okta. Over a third of our developer signups come from social login, and it guarantees you a much smoother experience building on top of Okta since it drops you straight into Okta's admin console UI and you don't have to search around for your Okta subdomain. Our custom onboarding UI gives developers a guided and customized onboarding experience that begins with setting up goals. As a developer, you can tell us what your role is, what you're trying to build, and the programming languages that you're using. Using this information, we give you a dynamic list of tasks and actions based on your goals so that you can get started with ease. For our custom app developers, we guide you through creating an app integration, downloading the right SDKs, and reading the right docs to get you through to sign in your first user as soon as possible. And if you're an ISV or partner developer and you want to publish an integration to the Okta integration network, we also offer guidance on how to build, test, and QA and publish your apps as quick as possible. Our App Wizard UI is one of our most important UIs. We really believe that a dev shouldn't have to read documentation just to use a wizard. So we've learned through user feedback that we have a lot of devs who are new to identity protocols, and it's a struggle just to learn which sign-on method or authorization flow to choose. So we've redesigned the App Wizard to give you everything you need to know inline when you need it. A big improvement we're proud of is the erasure of harmful assumptions. Because our App Wizard is used by people who are building apps for workforce versus partner versus customer identity use cases, it's really important to us that we keep all of these different use cases in mind. We wanted to make sure that App Wizard didn't set any defaults that would confuse any user. A great example is the requirement for certain devs to assign groups of users to their newly created app and then place redirect URIs in our trusted origins allow list. Instead of assuming that a user wants to set them one way or another, we've added these inputs to the App Wizard directly so users know that it needs to be decided on, and then they don't have to hunt through the rest of the admin console UI just to find their selection or input. So instead of forking the App Wizard based on SKUs and permissions, which won't scale as Okta's been growing into a platform, we now have a single App Wizard which serves everyone equally. To finish off our App Wizard enhancements, we added a quicker way for custom app devs to easily copy paste client credentials to their Okta org domain. This is required when setting up your apps to integrate and recognize Okta as a user store and identity provider. Our SDK teams are always working hard to bring you front end and back end SDKs in a multitude of languages. One pain point we've heard from devs is that it's not easy to figure out how to configure the sample apps which accompany each SDK. So we built a way for you to easily download pre-configured sample apps directly from the admin console. After you finish creating an app instance through the App Wizard, you can directly download a sample app of your choice with the client ID and client secret automatically added to the code. And then this way, Okta bootstraps the sample app code so the moment you download it, it's almost ready to run. The Okta Integration Network is our catalog of thousands of apps and integrations for both workforce and customer identity use cases. Recently, we've made huge improvements to our ISV portal. So if you're an ISV developer, and that is you share customers with Okta and you want them to have a prepackaged app integration to make it easy for customers to install your app from the OIN catalog, you can use the ISV portal to get very quickly your app tested and published. One big recent improvement is the ability to designate variables within URIs. For instance, if you're trying to publish an SSO integration and your app redirect URI is something like app.customersubdomain.com, where the customer subdomain is a variable based on the customer's tenant ID or ID, which is super common, you can now specify in the ISV portal what the variable is and construct a wildcard variable inside the redirect URI. And you can do this for any SAML, OIDC, or SCIM app. This change alone has cut down on our ISV developer publish time by many days, and we're proud to report that our catalog is growing faster than ever. If you ever need guidance on how to build, test, and publish an app to the OIN, just go to developer.okta.com where you'll find guides explaining exactly how to do that. So now that we've taken a look at some of the recent improvements to the developer onboarding and activation experience, now let's jump into a really exciting announcement about how we've made Developer Edition much more accessible and easy to use for self-service developers. We are super thrilled to announce our new Developer Editions. Our starter edition is completely free, no credit card required, with an industry leading 15,000 monthly active users. This is really catered towards serious application developers who might be on a budget but still need advanced identity provider features for their end users. A huge new benefit to devs on our new starter plan is the fact that both API access management and adaptive multi factor authentication are now both free. With free API access management, you can create unlimited OAuth 2.0 authorization servers. You can use authorization servers to secure your own APIs and provide user authorization across all your web services. You can also create your own authorization servers to define your own custom OAuth 2.0 scopes, claims, and access policies to support authorization for your APIs. With adaptive multi-factor authentication, it's one of Okta's most used features. You can create contextual access policies that assess risk factors such as device, network, location, travel, IP, and a bunch of other contexts at each step of the authentication process. Then, what you can do is you can pair risk levels with appropriate access decisions, like allowing or denying access, or prompting for a factor, or using passwordless authentication for a low risk requests. And again, this is all free for our starter developer edition. Now, if you require more than 15,000 monthly active users, we've updated our pricing to ensure that you only ever pay for what you need. For developers who exceed the limits of a free starter plan, our advanced developer edition allows you to get higher rate limits, more OIDC apps, more SAML apps, more OIN integrations. It's really intended to be a flexible plan that grows with you and scales as your business scales. The last part I want to mention is that at Octo, it's really important to us that everything is as self-service as possible. Consequently, we've made it really clear and easy for devs to upgrade in the admin console. You can self-service upgrade, you can downgrade at any point in time, and with our new plans page, you can quickly glance at your monthly active user count and just pay for what you need the month you need it. So thank you everyone for listening to my demo. Now that you've seen some of the recent improvements about our developer onboarding and the new admin console UIs, as well as the updates to our developer pricing, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Taylor, another developer experience product manager, who's going to do a demo on our entire application development lifecycle.
Thanks, Albert. Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Taylor. As Albert mentioned, I work with Albert on the developer experience as a product manager and really want to sort of put some of this information to life, right? We want to talk about what we mean by the DevX lifecycle. You heard some allusions from John's talk a little bit earlier in this presentation, but I wanted to sort of put that into some concrete stages that we believe that our developers are going through. The first is discover. This is what Albert was talking about, our investment in the developer.okta.com redesign. We want to get devs in to experience and play with Auth. That then follows another step, which we call prototype, which is where you're starting to play with this at a more tangible level. And these are the things that we've traditionally done. But as you heard John talk about the changing landscape of this industry, it starts to extend in some other stages. The next comes releasing, where we want to invest in being a part of the rapid development process. Tools like JHipster that allow you to bootstrap and get an application up and running in minutes are tools that can help us to prototype and understand how we want to deliver our apps to our customers. The next stage in releasing comes deployment and using other tools like Heroku and platforms as a service to enable our developers and operators to work together to embody and enable the CI/CD process are another area that we're trying to invest in to be a part of ushering you through to get to production live, just as Albert mentioned. But that's not all. The journey starts to get a little bit more interesting as we dive deeper into what happens after we get through that initial launch. This is our last stage that we believe the developers go through, which we call expansion. And expansion happens in a number of different ways. Primarily, you could see this happen when you're trying to break up a monolith into things like microservices. Again, talking about moving into a more cloud-native design. You have to secure these APIs, and we have to have solutions that will enable us to do this really quickly. We'll go into this in a little bit and talk about how we can do this and how Okta can stand right there with you. There's also employments of some other exciting technologies like containerization through Kubernetes, where we're starting to bring together the developer and the operators into this true DevOps integration form. And then finally, moving to this as code development structure that was mentioned a little bit earlier, using tools like Terraform to really standardize and make your infrastructure immutable, including your authentication bits. So that's just a little overview, but let's take a look at what this could really mean if we're putting this all together in a situation. Well, the first step is we got to actually figure out how we want to add Okta to our application. So going into this, we're going to start up an application with JHipster and take a look at what we need to do from the standpoint to get this up and running. What I'm doing is I'm actually taking from the product roundtable demo, we're setting up our Munchbox site using JHipster as an open source tool. Watch this right here. You're going to see us get into some of the Okta bits where we decide auth. Now, you see here we selected OIDC to set up the authentication in our app. This is allowing the opening for things like Okta to come in and secure our applications. What's going through next is a series of questionnaires to understand how you want your application to be stood up and configured. Now, what's interesting about JHipster is this way to get up a modern application tech stack, and again, in a matter of minutes. It allows you to do many different things, from adding the scaffolding for all of your particular developer patterns to give you an app with a Spring Boot backend and an Angular and Bootstrap frontend, but also to give you keys and hints to get into a microservice type architecture with microservices on the backend. What's also interesting about this is that sometimes the often forgotten tool is how you're going to administer your site, how you're going to take care of all of the bits that need to be configured over time. Well, JHipster will actually set up all of that for you and will allow you to start managing your application the same way that you would do if you had to build this from the ground up. And again, what I'm trying to get to show you here is what we've done to enable auth has all happened in the beginning. What you're seeing right now is us actually going through everything that we need to go through to get to the end state where we have a JHipster application. And like that, it's done. Next, we need to talk about how we actually make this thing live. So now we're just running this locally right now, but we've actually got to try to get this into some space where we can deploy and actually see it working live. So let's enter into a platform as a service like Heroku. So taking our JHipster application, we're going to link this into Heroku and start to fill out all the bits that we need to get this thing going along the CD process. What you're going to see here is that we're taking the information that we used with JHipster to set up the OIDC connection. We're then going to fill in all of the boilerplate configuration. But what's happening here is we're going to actually select our Okta provision add-on and log into JHipster. What we're doing now is we're actually putting the two together. Or putting the three together, I should say. We've got Okta, JHipster, and Heroku working together to add auth to our application. And what's really important about this is that you're seeing all of this stuff that's coming in that's happening right as you see it live time. But this is just our CD process. And I think, again, I'll just speak a little bit on the platforms as a service for a second while this is going on, just to say how important this actually is. So the platforms as a service, they use tools like containerization to make our deployment processes easier. This enables things like zero downtime deployments. And even taking that to a more intimate level, you can actually perform A/B testing with this by having multiple versions of apps that you can connect to. This will allow you to get more feedback from your customers in live time for changes that you're making to your application workflows and even to the interface. So there's a lot that this enables you to do. But that doesn't mean that there's any type of advocation of responsibility for deciding how this process is actually going to work. And I think that's the real key nugget here. When you're embarking on something like CI/CD, you're actually building a process. You're telling everyone how I want to push my apps into production. There's a number of decisions to make in this process, how you want to do that. And it's important to take the time and to be very careful and methodical about this type of process that you're doing. And the reason why I'm going deep on that particular level is to draw a counterpoint that we don't necessarily want to worry about auth. We don't want to have the same type of focus and concentration on the auth bits that are taking care of it for us. We want to be able to spend the time on deciding what are the times that we need to deploy, how do we need to deploy, and how do we keep the apps up and running. And again, I wanted to say that the reason why I'm talking through this is I want to show you this as like a live deployment, right? It's something that's actually happening through Heroku. that's using the platform as a service capabilities. I think the other part of this is you have a number of decisions to make, as we'll tease into the next section. As your apps start to grow and mature, CI and CD might change. Auth doesn't need to change. You want to make sure that you have everything that you need to start. And again, we offer a lot of ways for you to understand how your auth may change, but that occurs in a different interface that Albert went over with our admin. And what you're seeing here is what I want to focus on from the developer standpoint. I need to work on all of my processes and get them from point A to point B. And as we're looking at what this will mean at the end, we should actually get to a point where we've got a full-on application launched into production. You see the builds completed here. The next step for us to go through is to deploy. And again, I just want to call out the point of just how far away we are from all the auth decisions that we made. All of that was automated and integrated through the system. We're going to wait here for just a second to see how this is going to compress and deploy, and then we should be good to go. So now actually you see the app is deployed to Heroku. We're going to just wait for another second to make sure that it gets started, that it will start up, and then we should be able to see our application running live. We've just got, all right, there we go. And our application should now be live. We're going to go take a look at what that looks like. So here is our application. We're going to click here to log in. What you're going to see here now is we're going to actually switch over to Okta. So without us doing anything in any interaction, Okta is now running. We're going to log into our site. When we click sign in, just give it a second. It's going to redirect us back into our site, and now we're here logged in. So just to take a step back from this moment, we actually went from a scaffolding of an app to deploying through Heroku, and now we're live in production in just about 6 minutes. Well, let's bring some more fun into the mix here. What happens when we've got to grow our architecture? There's a fundamental concept that I really love here called the Application Continuum. This is how I had to make my peace with monoliths. What it states here is that you can go from different stages of your application. It works sort of like a life cycle. You start out with a monolith because that's your fastest speed to market. But eventually the gravity of your situation may change, and you might have to break up some of these services, as you know how difficult it may be to deploy. One minor change in one area may affect a larger change in another area. We've all been there. So in this example, what we're taking is that Munchbox demo from earlier, and we're going to say we want to add an API endpoint. Well, here's a look at what that desired state would look like. We're going to make a simple request to an internal API, and we're going to see what our intended contract will look like. This is just to gather some snacks. What you'll notice about this that I'll call out is that it's just a simple request and there's no security. So I don't know if this is actually going to work for us in live production. We need to actually have something a little better. Oops. We need to have something that's more secure on our API. And we actually need to set it up with an API gateway. These API gateways are really strong for giving us the ability to secure our API endpoints without doing a lot to our code. Now, as you notice again from the previous example, we just built out our API contract, and we need to set it up with Kong. So here we can go into the UI and quickly set up a name for our service, and this is going to be our Munchbox API. Again, we just got the one endpoint that we're looking to secure. Inside of this service, we're going to set up our implementation, which is going to start to describe the path that we're going to do. What we're setting up here is we're getting the constructs of the intercept that we want to do. And here we'll type in the internal URL that we want to intercept for these requests coming in, and we'll reflect them through a public URL. Once this is done, we're going to start filling in all of the necessary configuration that's going to actually configure this endpoint to be intercepted and prompt for the authentication. What's interesting here, we provide a name just as we were naming any object. We can add a path, but the other thing that we can do is we can secure different methods. So let's say that we really want to protect posts or patch or puts. We can do that, and we can leave the gets updated. Now we actually get to the interesting part. We actually need to add the authentication and authorization here. Now this is actually a really easy process. We're going to select the plugin. This is a plugin for OpenID Connect, which is going to facilitate the OAuth flows. Once we enable this provider, we have a series of things that we want to fill out. Now this form may seem like it's really big, but there's only 4 main things that we need to add here. First is going to be the client ID that's going to identify Kong connecting to Okta. The next is going to be the client secret that will be the authentication bit for that. The next is we have to set up the location of the issuer, and the issuer is going to be the authorization server. So in OAuth 2, you have this broker of the authorization task, which is called the authorization server, and it's going to be something that you can configure in Okta in the admin site. We'll also add a scope that we need to provide so that we know what are the types of what are the types of attributes that we need to have when we actually authorize against this site. That's it. We're now set up. So now let's take a look at this in action. The first step I'm going to do here is make a simple request unsecured to the endpoint. And the reason why I want to do this is I want to show what's exactly changing with the intercept. So before we had that unsecured endpoint, what you're going to see when we actually click to submit this API request, it's moved. We're actually now going to Kong to facilitate the authorization. So I'm going to throw in some bad credentials here, and we should get back something really interesting. When it loads up, we should see the status of 401 and a little tag that says unauthorized, meaning our APIs are now secured. Let's prove this one step further and go in and provide a real client ID and secret and see what happens. Here we're providing our client ID. Next we'll provide the secret or an enter it. Now everything is being processed and you actually see our API contract delivered. So again, stepping back, there's a lot that you have to do when you're trying to add authorization to your applications. This is something that takes a lot of energy to work through. Going through and changing your architecture is not an easy discussion, nor is it an easy implementation. The point being is that there are tools with API gateways in combination with Okta that'll make that process easier when you're ready to go. And again, a little time check, we've been about 11 minutes and we've been able to secure APIs and grow our architecture. Let's take it to the next level and let's deal with the viral success of this Munchbox app. Now let's see what will happen when we actually have to expand our business case. Let's say that we've just caught like wildfire and we are dealing with hyper-growth scenarios. So this means we may have to make some decisions. We may have to expand our environments, get a proper development, testing, and production environment set up. We may also need to expand our footprint. Maybe we are seeing a lot of activity from different countries. We need to expand into other areas. The other thing is we may be looking at resiliency issues, like maybe we're just doing single server deployments and we want to deploy to multiple servers. How are we going to make sure that all of our environments are the same going through? The last one is a really interesting one. In like, what if our business model changes? What if someone says, I want to stake out a little piece of your universe and I want to launch my own contained tenant solution? And so you're dealing with multi-tenancy. Well, what's good about this is solutions that are like infrastructure as code and configuration as code, tools like Terraform can allow you to do this. And the last bit we want to go through is how we can actually perform this environment creation with Terraform. So imagine here, I've got a Terraform script that's going to run, and it's going to be setting up all of my environment. We do offer support for Terraform, and this is another great allusion to Albert's comment earlier, where we talked about how our customers are contributing. Terraform was actually a genesis out of our customers plus Okta working together to build this type of state. And as you notice here in the Terraform script, we're actually collecting all of the Okta bits first, we're packaging them to the container, and we're starting to go through the normal infrastructure deployment process. Again, what we're really trying to show you is that Okta is just a piece of the pie here. We offer support for most of the management framework through our Terraform provider, so you can do this to whatever level you like. But then you need to still do everything else to launch your containers. And I think what we'll see another taste here that everyone should appreciate, we'll have to do a lot of the networky things. So here you'll see that we're actually going through to create the network information, and this is what's going to take us the long time. Again, the point is to put the distance between the decisions that you have to make for Auth with the decisions that you have to do in general to replicate this infrastructure. I think this is a really telling example of how much you need Okta as a partner in your growth, not just through production, but into the unknown, into the areas where you need to grow and expand quickly, But you don't want to make Auth decisions. You need to make business decisions. You need to be able to react very quickly to the changes in your landscape and to the demands of your customers. And you need a partner that's going to support you through that. And this is why we are focusing on that particular tail end of this developer experience to make sure that Okta is supporting you through all of those changes. And right now, as we're about to finish here, we just want to put the icing on the cake and show really quickly that we're able to launch our duplicate environment, which should come up in just a few seconds. There it is. So let's take one last step back and see in this journey that you've had for the past 15 minutes. We've taken you through creating an app and prototyping it and getting it into production, expanding the architecture and securing your APIs, and now replicating across a fault-tolerant, maybe global footprint, or just an expanded universe. And Okta's right there with you. So to talk more about how we're empowering this leg of the journey, I'll turn it over to Bharat to talk about our partnerships.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. As John hinted earlier, and as Jeff just showed you, partnerships help us provide solutions that address broader use cases and scenarios. One of the key ways we are thinking about this broadening or expansion of identity use cases is to look at APIs, cloud native architectures, and DevOps automation. And Jeff showed you some of that already, but there are many possibilities of what we can do when we bring partners in and work together to build workflows and systems that just work better together for the full developer lifecycle. At the base of it, we know that very few of you want to spend an inordinate amount of time learning and implementing Auth protocols such as OIDC to make your APIs more secure and to be able to properly do role-based access control. Not to mention the risk that you take on when you're writing your own Auth code. Additionally, Auth should be a part of your development process, and it should be automated into your CI/CD pipelines, just as much as any other component of your DevOps cycle, like test. Specifically for APIs, cloud, DevOps, and infra, we have a set of key partner integrations coming this year that will make bringing identity into your developer environments, be it web, mobile, microservices, APIs, container-to-container auth, faster and easier, so that you can focus on your code and not on auth code. Let me talk a little bit more about. Jeff showed you a little bit of this, but let me talk a little bit more about some of the specific integrations we're working with partners. And with Kong, Kong and Okta complement each other in many ways. As Jeff mentioned, for API gateways, authentication is an important way to control data that is being transmitted using your APIs. Basically, it's like a particular consumer or requesting agent has permission to access an API. It's that simple, using a predefined set of credentials. As many of you know, of all authentication mechanisms, OpenID Connect, OIDC, and OAuth are the preferred protocols for advanced requirements. This is where the partnership between Okta and Kong shines. To be able to do sophisticated Auth-N and Auth-C use cases, not available otherwise. So with partnering with Kong, we're able to do multiple use cases like client credentials, authorization code, introspection, access control, and all the authentication side of it as well. It's important to notice that one of the main benefits provided by an architecture like this is to follow the separation of concerns principle. So the identity provider is responsible for user and application authentication, tokenization, MFA, adaptive MFA, all the flavors of that, and then all the database stuff as well. While the API gateway, such as Kong, is responsible for exposing the upstream services and controlling their consumption through an extensive list of policies that are that include rate limiting, caching, log processing, and a whole host of other things. So we're really excited about this partnership, and we're working together to bring you stuff. As you can see, there are great things coming with Kong and our other partners. now that we've talked a little bit about some of the innovations we're delivering with partners, I'm guessing a lot of you are wondering, when can I get my hands on some of this code? So um, uh, we are going to have a series of events, including a hackathon with really cool prizes. These are all opportunities for you guys to get your hands on code. And this Friday at Octane, we will have a free all-day set of developer labs that will go through how you can secure your apps with Okta and secure your APIs with Okta. These 2 sessions will be very hands-on, and there will be technical lab assistance to help you if you get stuck. If the session you sign up for is filled up, don't worry. We have you covered. We will broadcast both sessions on Twitch and Okta YouTube channel. So, and you get a lab recipe and all that kind of stuff. So we're really, really excited to do this new hands-on engagement with developers this year. Also, throughout the year, you will see us release code with various partners. Look for a regular cadence of releases from us to help you make your Auth architecture and your Auth flow better with Okta. I'm really excited to also talk a little bit about a new developer game that we are working on called Code Tycoon. Code Tycoon is a choose-your-own-adventure sim game where a newly hired coder attempts to grow a small company into a global powerhouse. But there's like all these problems that happen, and there's these challenges, and basically like if there's a data breach, then there's a big red thing that happens, and they have to go into these like different parts, and it's really a fun game. Make sure you sign up for the private preview at the Octane Developer Hub, which you can find in your attendee stuff. I really want to, I really want to thank you guys for coming to our session today. The Developer Labs on Friday, please join that. The upcoming hackathon, we'll give you more news about that soon. And our sample code and doc resources are great ways for you to continue your journey with us on Auth, identity, and security. Again, if the labs are full, if the developer labs are full, don't worry. Go to our broadcasts on Twitch and YouTube. There's just a great way to see how you can plug Auth into your solutions if you don't know how to. We really want to save all of you time, effort by helping you secure your apps, APIs, and infra. We want to do that quickly. We want to help you do that quickly and at scale. Spend less time on Auth and more time on building amazing apps. Thank you.